Ibn and King Sennacherib as cultural twins by comparing their different perspectives on the cities of Mosul, Jerusalem, and Cizreli. Ali ibn al-Athir is regarded as one of the most significant Muslim historians of the Middle Ages. In his monumental chronicle Al-Kamil v al-Tariq, The Complete History, he provides one of the most detailed Muslim perspectives on the Crusades and has remained an important source for both Islamic and Western historiography. In the same region, nearly 2,800 years before Ibn al-Athir lived Sennacherib, the great Assyrian king. His military campaigns, above all those against Jerusalem, but also expeditions toward Manchuria, are recorded in inscriptions and monumental reliefs. These testimonies allow us to gather additional information to the events described in the Bible. The first city that connects our two twins is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is most significant to three religions. From the time of Ibn al-Athir, we have a letter from the Crusader king Richard the Lionheart to Sultan Saladin. Jerusalem is for us a matter of faith, and we could never renounce it. Saladin, in reply, wrote, "Jerusalem belongs to us no less than to you. In fact, it is even more sacred to us than to you." These are the Christian and Muslim perspectives of that time. The Jewish view is expressed in the words of Psalm 137. "If I forgot you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy." The Crusades remained in collective memory as an era of violence. In many battles of the Middle Ages, immense bloodshed took place, including in Jerusalem. The conquest of the Holy City in 2099 was not unique in itself, yet it has been remembered with particular intensity by both the Muslim and the Christian worlds. From the West, we have chronicles written from a Christian perspective, but through Ibn al-Athir, available today in translation, even in German, we gain also access to distinctly Muslim and Arabic views of the events. This is of great value for multi-perspectival approaches to history and for intercultural dialogue. Indeed, a teaching project developed at the University of Bonn sets the two accounts side by side, the Christian version by William of Tyre and a Muslim account by Ibn al-Athir. Both report a terrible massacre committed by the Crusaders. Ibn al-Athir speaks of many victims, yet he also notes that there were some acts of mercy. He writes about a group of survivors. They departed at night toward Ascalon. He adds, "They were in tears and moved others to tears when they told of what the Muslims had suffered in that exalted and holy city." William of Tyre, in contrast, reports the same events in a completely different tone, emphasizing that the massacre had restored order in the city. According to him, the conquerors entered the Christian holy sites with hymns and songs. Both perspectives require careful comparison and critical analysis. The death tolls are very likely exaggerated. After other medieval conquests and massacres, it is clear that far fewer people lived in Jerusalem at the time. Some inhabitants also survived, as the testimony of refugees confirms. Instead of the 70,000 reported by Ibn al-Athir, the number of victims was probably closer to 10,000, still a horrific tragedy. Williams too may have exaggerated to magnify the glory of the conquest. Turning now to the twin, King Sennacherib of Assyria. He reports on a similar attack against Jerusalem, this time 700 before the Common Era, and from the Assyrian perspective. In the Old Testament, we encountered a viewpoint from within the besieged city itself. Sennacherib's campaign fails, and the Assyrian army is struck down by an angel of God. Archaeologists unearthed the Assyrian version of the same story. On the so-called Sennacherib prison, the Assyrian account of the third campaign is preserved in cuneiform. Here the king of Jerusalem, Hezekiah, is said to have been enclosed, and the conquest of 46 fortified city is proudly listed. Unsurprisingly, there is no mention of defeat of Jerusalem. Such an admission would hardly be what an Assyrian world ruler wished to pass on posterity. The Bible tells us that after Sennacherib was later assassinated by his own sons, they fled to the land of Ararat. In later translation, this was rendered as Kardu, the very mountain range known today as Judah. Jerusalem, a holy place for many faiths, marked by conflict over millennia, and still today. In the Old Testament we read, "Behold, I am about to make Jerusalem a cup of staggering and a heavy stone for all the peoples." In the New Testament, Jesus Christ weeps and said to the city, "If you, even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace. To this very day, Jerusalem has not found peace. Perhaps a multi-perspectival understanding can contribute to opening pathway toward reconciliation. Learning from the past, in my conviction, should lead us to extend our hands to one another and to renounce violence. As a Christian, I am guided by the words of Jesus Christ in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Believers of other faiths will surely know similar words that call for peace, words that can inspire us to build a better future together. The second city is Mosul, once called Nineveh. Mosul is today the second largest city in Iraq with a population of nearly 3 million. It lies on the banks of the Tigris River and surrounds the ancient city of Nineveh, whose ruins are in part overbuilt by the modern metropolis. In recent decades, Mosul has repeatedly been in the headlines as a battlefield and a place of war, destruction and terror. In recent years, UNESCO has invested heavily in reconstruction. Today, Mosul is a city of remarkable cultural diversity. While the majority of its inhabitants are Arabs, it is also home of Assyrians, Kurds, Turkmens, Yazidis, and other groups. Nineveh was one of the most important cities of Assyria. In biblical tradition, the great city builder Nimrod is said to have founded Nineveh. According to Assyrian legends, however, the city was established by the goddess Ishtar. Excavations reveal settlement traces going back to the Neolithic period. Nineveh is also known well to the story of the prophet Jonah. Until 2014, Mosul still preserved a monument to his memory, the prophet Jonah Mosque, which was then destroyed. Today it is under reconstruction, as you can see in this picture taken very recently by a friend. Sennacherib made Nineveh the capital of Assyria. He and his successors built imposing palaces there, richly decorated with reliefs. One of those reliefs, this face, was deliberately destroyed after his reign, a striking reminder of the vulnerability even of the mightiest kings. Many centuries later, Ali ibn al-Athir lived in the same city, now known as Mosul. By that time, the ruins of Nineveh had long faded, yet the vicinity of the ancient royal city was still tangible. Mosul had become an important center of the Sengid realm, a hub of politics, trade and culture. For Ibn al-Athir, it was both his place of residence and the city where he composed his monumental World Chronicle and where he ultimately died. In this way, Sennacherib and Ibn al-Athir are also connected through this city, almost as mirror images, the one as a king and builder, the other as a historian and chronicler. The third city is Cizreli. The reason for this symposium: Cizreli was the birthplace of the Ibn al-Athir brothers, who became some of the city's most famous figures, renowned, as I have shown, even at university in the Christian West. In preparing for this symposium, I have learned a lot about them and about their time. Cizreli lies within the site of Sefine, the landing place of Noah's Ark. Ali ibn al-Athir does not explicitly mention that the Ark came to rest near his hometown, yet he was certainly familiar with the Quranic traditions. Throughout the centuries, Cizreli and Mount Judy have remained an important site of pilgrimage. His contemporaries, such as Al-Masudi, reported that in their time, remnants of the Ark were still visible. Many centuries earlier, Sennacherib had been here. At a symposia in 2013 and 2021 at the University of Şırnak, we learned a lot about this. His fifth campaign brought him to Mount Judy, which he called Nippur. And an old Jewish legend tells us on his return to Assyria, Sennacherib found a wooden plank which he worshipped as an idol, for it was part of an ark with which Noah has been saved from the flood. This mountain was of great importance to Sennacherib. He had several rock reliefs carved here at Shah and at Hasana. In recent months, I have investigated the orientation of Sennacherib's pointing finger on the various reliefs. My study suggests that the finger is, with high probability, directed towards the landing place of Noah's Ark, Sefine, a striking expression of his glorification and worship of the site. These and other findings indicate that the Ark's landing place was not only of great importance for Islam, Christianity and Judaism, but already held special significance in Assyrian times and perhaps even for the earlier Hurrians. For centuries, Mount Judy has been a sacred place for believers of different religions. Then came times of conflict, war and terror. This time now seems to be overcome, and I was fascinated to see the picture and video clips of the Judy Festival held in July. Here people gather, here a mosque is being built. For the local population, Sefine has once again come into view as a holy place, just as it had been for over 2,700 years. As a Christian from Germany, I am deeply grateful to join the symposium and to have the opportunity to address this audience. I hope that through my paper I have been able to highlight the fascinating connection between the two cultural twins, Ibn al-Athir and Sennacherib, and to present some fascinating perspectives on the history of the three cities. Perhaps the third city, Cizreli, with Mount Judy, may become a place of shared pilgrimage, of peace and of mutual understanding, the landing place of the Ark after the flood, and peace among mankind are marked by a common symbol, the dove, and the organizers of the Judy festivals too have released doves into the sky. Among Christians in Europe, Mount Judy is not yet widely known, but awareness is steadily growing. Caused by my research, the Judy mountain has even been added as an alternative to Mount Ararat, Agrida, in the Bible translation of the Catholic Church. Let me please present you this beautiful version of that Bible as a gift for the university and as a sign of gratitude. Thank you very much for your attention.
Mr. Roller.
Bayan bayla ilginç için teşekkürler.
Thank you. Bugün vatandaş göstergesi ilginiz için teşekkür ederim.
Değil mi hocam?
Çeviriyoruz. Anlamıyoruz diyor.
Our thanks to Mr. Roller for interesting presentation. Our third speaker for this session is Dr. Stephen Compton. His paper title, How to Excel as a Scribe, 13th Century Writing Advice from Diyaüddin İbn'ül.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and a great pleasure and privilege to be able to focus on the lives of someone clicking on it. It had to be copied out by hand for weeks and months. And for it to survive down to the present, many people had to make copies of it. And these were not small volumes. We know something about the secret to their success as great writers because the youngest of the three brothers, Diyaüddin Ibn al-Athir, wrote a book about how to be a writer. And having come from the profession of academic editing and spent much of my career working with writing both good and mediocre. I'm fascinated by this question of what makes a good writer and how can we all improve as writers. And since we're in a room of scholars who have to write for a living and students, I think it might be a useful subject to explore. The approach that we find in Diyadin ibn al-Athir is very different from the approach to writing that I found in the Western world. He sets a number of prerequisites and a very high standard for what someone must attain in order to become a writer. In the Western tradition, you have a number of stories and approaches that focus on accessibility and on how easy it is. Anybody can do it. So famously, Samuel Taylor Coleridge laid down and took a nap one day, and while he was sleeping, in his dream he hears, "In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alf the sacred rivers ran through caverns measureless to man." And this poem that goes on to become a classic, he gets up and allegedly writes the entire thing down from memory and only gets interrupted when someone knocks at his door and he loses the end of it. And that inspired a number of, that inspired a number of people to want to become romantic poets, think it was easy, and try to take on the same approach, usually with far less success. Very similarly, Jack Kerouac, famous writer of On the Road, was a big fan of jazz, which was the popular musical art form of the time, and wanted to approach writing like jazz. And so instead of feeding one sheet of typing paper into his typewriter at a time, he made a scroll 120 feet long and fed it into his typewriter and wrote free form off the top of his head for 3 weeks straight and created his book without preparation, just telling the tales of his adventures on the road with his friends. And that also inspired many copycats and many people to attempt to become writers because of how easy and accessible it is. Similarly, NaNoWriMo is designed to have everyone spend the month of November creating a book off the top of their head without preparation. So again, an emphasis on accessibility. In stark contrast to that, Diyadin ibn al-Athir, before he even begins teaching writing, he lays out a number of things that one must attain before approaching becoming a writer. It's the exact opposite of accessibility. You have to become a polymath. He says that the jurist only has to learn the law, the grammarian only has to learn grammar, and the theologian only has to learn theology. But to be a writer, you must master all of them and all of the disciplines of knowledge so that you can write intelligently about anything that you happen to have to write about. Similarly, he said that one must master all the literature that's gone before so that you can reference the great literature before, know the great literature that's gone before you, and be able to carry on that tradition forward into the future, creating newer and better works based on those that went before you. He also said that you have to learn all of the proverbs, have to master history, again, so that you can reference intelligently what's gone before you and be informed and knowledgeable in order to be able to write about any subject. So only after all of this, and then the Quran and the Hadith, it was very important to him that people also be informed about religious subjects. In addition to having to read and be informed on all of these subjects, he required memorization so that one had to commit to memory passages of great literature, the Proverbs, passages of the Quran, and again, in order to be able to reference them. So before he begins his guide to being a writer, before he ever begins teaching writing, he sets all of these prerequisites for what kind of polymath you have to be. It's kind of a Leonardo da Vinci of writers, someone who can master any and every discipline and be able to talk and approach eloquently any and every discipline, which is a very high standard. After that, then he begins to give instruction in writing. He favors balance and moderation, and he teaches that we should find the great passages in the literature that's gone before us as we've studied this literature and seek to copy those passages and then rework them using the devices that the writers before us used in our own examples, in our own situations, so that we learn their tricks, their techniques, and become a better writer that way. He also said that in the same way, a math problem can be solved through multiple different approaches. Any given content that you're trying to express in your writing, you should practice and be able to express in different ways, in different forms, so that you can express it in the best way possible for the situation at hand and for the audience at hand. So how can we apply this today? We live in a world, I'll speak at least from my own experience, that is very distracted. A study by Gloria Marx followed information workers and how often they change screens. Beginning in 2004, the average worker changed their screen every 2.5 minutes. By 2016, it was every 47 seconds. Our attention spans are rapidly declining, and this was before even TikTok. So, for me, I see in Ibn there an example of what is possible, that even though we can't master all knowledge and complete polymathy the way he advocated in 1200, I think we still aspire to have greater mental discipline, greater focus, study more, learn more, not confine ourselves only to our own disciplines, but attempt to gain a broad education, a broad knowledge base. Definitely a very distracted world we live in now. And I see exercise as perhaps a metaphor. Not all of us are going to become polymaths in the way that Ibn al-Athir advocated, in the same way that not all of us are going to become Michael Jordans or great athletes, but we can all attempt as much as possible to keep ourselves, to exercise, to improve ourselves physically, and also to improve our minds and improve our education and improve our knowledge base, and aspire to be more and do more intellectually as well as physically. And of course, all of us, by being here, are doing that. We're developing our minds, and you're all phenomenal historians and scholars, and I commend you for that. And I thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Ben sizi bunu çok takdir ediyorum. Evet, Yılki.